Hi everyone. I wanted to talk about ambition. I just did like 3 minutes of this podcast and then I had to delete it for fear of, I don't know what I was scared of. Oh, I know what I was scared of. You know when you say something, it's like a Freudian slip and then you're like, fuck, can't be posting that. Don't worry, it wasn't a slur or anything. It was just... yeah, also completely irrelevant to the premise of this episode, so I will be moving swiftly on. I felt like I would be keeping something if I didn't say that, like I wouldn't be being completely honest. I felt like I needed to get that off my chest. Yeah, so I want to talk about ambition. Mainly, I just saw a video on Instagram, TikTok, I don't know, about this girl who is a diagnosed sociopath, talking about how she doesn't understand people that don't have ambition, and she doesn't understand anxiety. And I feel like maybe the main thing that she's missing is that anxiety is one of the main inhibitors for ambition. You know, I think you can be a person that is innately quite ambitious and have drive and be dedicated, and anxiety can kind of come in and just completely diminish that. And one of the things that I was saying in the other episode that I just deleted was that I think there is a massive difference between ambition and drive. And while they kind of obviously work very well together, I would say ambition is the start and drive is the thing that moves it forward. You know, I think to have drive is to have perseverance. And that's, I think, something that maybe is convoluted in today's like girl boss feminism. I don't know, I can't speak this morning, it's very early. Girl boss feminism and like the manosphere, like alpha male shit, all of it comes down to, if you're not prepared to hustle, you won't get anywhere. And I think it's funny because I am someone that I'm a very driven person. I'm very proactive. I don't like waiting around and I like to get things done. I've always struggled a lot with people that just kind of like don't take any proactive measures to deal with things or get things moving or whatever. Like I've always found that kind of frustrating. And I think the older I get, obviously I have a lot more empathy for people having, you know, different personality types and people having like traumas and, you know, I get all of that. However, the older I get, I would say, it's funny because I would say the higher my drive becomes, but the lower my ambition becomes. And I don't know if part of this is because I have had quite a few like scary experiences in terms of like near-death experiences. And I know it's a very common phenomenon that when you have an accident, it reprioritizes everything in your life and you kind of realize what is important and what isn't. And like, luckily for me, I haven't had one now for a few years. But I had 3 in the span of like 2.5 years, which was quite traumatizing. And I've spoken about this at length, so I'm not going to bore you guys with the details. But before these incidents, I had all of these grand plans. And I had, I guess, maybe naively, a real laid out plan of where I thought my life was going to go and what I was going to do with my life. And now that is kind of, I don't know, my perspective has been shifted. I've realized that a lot of those desires that I had were rooted in materialism or ego or the idea of trying to prove that I'm better at something than someone else. You know, it's like, I want to be the best at this because it gives my ego a sense of completion. Like, being the best at something is, I guess, a nice feeling for your mind and your ego. Like it makes you feel superior or important or whatever. And I think when you grapple with your own mortality, big difference between the two there. When you grapple with your own mortality, you kind of realize that, like, maybe the point isn't to be the best. The point isn't to have the most money. Like, the point isn't to leave with a sentence that can sum you up. I think that's the main thing. And I've got friends that are very successful, and you know, they make a lot of money and they have a lot of things, you know, and like, to the average person looking in, their lives are what you would consider to be like the dream life, and they enjoy that lifestyle, and that's great. But like, I'm not friends with those people because of how much money they make, or because of, you know, the Christmas presents I get from them, things like that. And I think when they die, I won't, and I would hope that they are around people that also feel the same as me. But when they die, I won't be going, R.I.P., you made so much money, you know? And I know this isn't a new philosophy, like this whole thing of like, when you die, you want someone to be like, okay, he was philanthropic, or he was considerate, he was empathetic, he was this or that or whatever. Like, everyone knows that that's what you want to be able to say about, or someone have to say about you when you die. And I think there is definitely this difficult point of, I don't even know how you would explain it, almost like confusion, because I think a lot of things that we want to be able to do, you kind of can't do without money or material wealth. And that is the main thing that I dislike about capitalism, is that the access point or the entry point costs. And I understand that's the way the system works. I don't agree with it. I don't think capitalism is a beneficial way for society to be run. I don't think a patriarchy, you know, works. And if you kind of can't see the similarities between the patriarchy and capitalism, my content's not for you. But I feel like the entry level, like the barriers for entry to just be able to say that you've done those things are so high, and increasingly higher. You know, it's like, okay, you want to become a yoga teacher. Cool. You can do that in England, right? Or Wales, or Australia, or Mexico, wherever you live. Say, for example, you're from England like me, and you know that you want to train in India and, you know, go the traditional route and like genuinely learn about the fundamental principles of yoga, where it originated, you know. That's a lot of money. That is going to cost you money, and it is innately a privilege to be able to go and have that experience. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that there are barriers to entry. You know, if you become a yoga teacher and you feel fulfilled by that, it is still a privilege that you were able to go to India and complete that certification. It is even a privilege to not go to India and to complete that certification in England or wherever you choose to complete it. Because to have the time set aside for that, to be able to work on that, and maybe not have to worry so much about providing for your 2 children, or, you know, you having 2 jobs and not having time to dedicate towards something like that. It is all innately a privilege. And this is the thing, that we all have such different, like, barriers for entry. Like, all of our margins are so different. And I think that's where privilege comes in. And I think that's where people, like, you know, this concept of ambition, and like, even if you're looking at Molly May's 24 hours in a day thing, it's kind of a lot more complex than that. I feel that there you know, if you could kind of do like this macro approach of like, okay, well, it's the price of the course is going to be the same for everyone. That is true. But the accessibility to reach that goal is going to be different for everyone. So it's like the ambition is the same for everyone. The ambition is the goal, the I don't know what you'd call it, primary goal. But the drive that it takes to achieve that goal is different for everyone. And the drive that is required is different because of these different like margins of entry. And I think this is where like I've come to this point kind of, sorry, let me just sip my coffee really quick. Sorry, I really should start editing, honestly. I used to do it, but I just really can't be arsed. This kind of idea for me of like kind of not giving up, because I have every urge to live like a really successful life and I want to make something for myself. But I think, I guess we have to talk about finances when we have this conversation. Obviously, you know, I've just briefly touched on how margins of entry are different for everyone, and that is financially going to be different for everyone. You know, if you've got kids, that's another kind of thing that you need to be aware of. Or if you've got family in a different country that you need to send money to, that is going to be something that is, you know, there's a lot of different factors that indicate how accessible something is to you. Even though it might be down the road from you, the price is going to be the same for everyone. You know, you see what I'm saying? And I think for me personally, I am very aware that I have probably, apart from being a man, the most privilege that I could have. You know, like I come from, well, half of my family are white, middle class. I grew up in a lovely house in a lovely area. You know, we own our house. My mum was fortunate when I was younger to have a good job for a while. I have a great relationship with my family. I have a great relationship with my friends. I'm able to afford therapy. I'm, you know, mentally competent. I have full motion, range of motion in my body. I have everything that I could possibly need to get somewhere. And it's funny because there was, you know, before I'd had these accidents, I was like, I always really wanted to be a surgeon. When I was younger, I really, really wanted to be a surgeon. That was like my dream goal. And I went to college and I did the A-levels that I needed to do that. And then I had my accident and it all kind of just went out the window. I changed my A-levels, like went down much more of a holistic route, kind of opened up to like the concept of spirituality. And I kind of realized that in that moment, or maybe I should say every moment before that, I'd never realized what I had. All of those things that I just listed about my privilege and how like lucky I am, I had never thought about those things. And I was constantly complaining. I was constantly whinging, moaning, whining about how, I don't know, the most stupid things. Oh, my friends didn't fucking wait for me for lunch. And like, bear in mind, I was like 17. So like, I'm going to allow myself a little bit of immaturity because I don't like the idea that like, it's like, you want to be treated like an adult, behave like one. I'm literally a child. I'm a minor. No, like, I don't like that argument. And I think there's a way to speak to children with respect that doesn't involve them having to have like the emotional competence of a 30-year-old. But yeah, it just put things into perspective. And I realized that even though I had this goal or whatever that I wanted to do, I only wanted to do it for egoic reasons. I only wanted to do it because I know it would give me a lot of money, or I knew I would be able to like diagnose people and be like, this is like, if one of my friends broke their arm, I'd be able to be like, I know you've broken your arm. Do you know what I mean? It's like I would be able to have an understanding of a topic that I knew was complex. And to me, that like made me feel superior. It gave me the superiority complex. And I think that is a thing that like a lot of people do before they maybe wake up. And it's this idea of like They're looking for something to do that sets them apart. And I don't know why as humans, I do know it's our ego is constantly trying to separate as a way to protect us, but I don't know why we're not as aware of it, that we're constantly trying to separate. Like, you're boring and I'm not. You don't dress as well as I do. Your hair is thinner than mine. You're fatter than me. You're not funny. You're not as funny as me. You don't have as good of a job as me. Like, any of these things to just bolster ourselves up and make ourselves feel better. And like, I noticed, bear in mind, like, this was a long time ago for me. Like, this was like 6 years ago now. So I would like to hope I've come a long way since then. But I realised how much of my time I was spending calling out other people's flaws or other people's issues to make me feel better about my own. And the funny thing is that all those things that I could point out in other people were traits that I'd possessed in myself that I wasn't able to admit to myself yet. It was a projection thing. They were holding up a mirror to the parts of myself that I hadn't yet met with. And when I realized that, it's really embarrassing. Obviously, you're like, oh my God, I'm a massive hypocrite and also a loser. But that point is so fundamentally transformative, because from that point forward, you can think, okay, instead of being a massive bitch all the time, like I was at 17 and 18, I can now think to myself, okay, let's not do this again. Like, I think, sorry, coffee break. One of the main things that I carry with me is when I acknowledge something about myself, or I realize something about myself. It could be good, bad, whatever it is. So let's say, for example, it's bad. So recently, I would say 2026 for me has been the year of realizing that I'm a hypocrite. And that has been probably like one of the biggest things that I've been able to address within myself, is that I have hypocritical tendencies, or I change my mind about things, and I can't be the one lecturing someone else if I'm then doing the same thing for myself. But having that realization, as horrible as it was and as uncomfortable as it was, has now brought it to light so that it's easier for me to then acknowledge that in the future when I say something. It's almost like fresher in my mind. It's like, well, I just said something that directly opposed that like last week. So which one is it? And I think a big thing with like hypocrisy as a trait is a lot of it stems from being confused and not knowing what you want to do and where you want to go and who you want to be and whatever. It's literally just a case of you not knowing what you stand for. So as a result of me acknowledging the fact that I have hypocritical traits, I'm now fine-tuning what I actually stand for. So it's like I've turned this thing that was a negative trait into a positive realization for myself. And I try and do this with traits throughout my life. It's like back in the day when I was a bitch, I tried to stop being a bitch and realized, like I just said, like I was using it as a way to make me feel better about myself. So what does that lead to? Okay, I have a low sense of self-esteem. So then you can do things that work on your self-esteem. Relatively simple once you figure out the formula. But I feel like in terms of, ambition and drive, I guess for me, things became more fluid. I regained an ability that I think I'd lost a long time ago, which was sort of a sense of connection with myself. And like for those of you that don't know, I am very spiritually inclined, and it helped me rebuild that relationship with spirit or God, or however you choose to define that relationship. It's different for everyone. I've noticed I used to call it source in a lot of my podcasts. I used to call it source, and now I call it spirit, and I don't know where that shift has come from, but same thing. In my head, same thing, different for everyone, I know. But I think reconnecting with spirit for me helped me figure out what I want and who I want to be, and almost like, I think the main thing that taught me, to be honest with you, was having faith. I know we don't like him at all, and I'm not like trying to like flex on his name and like give him credit right now, but Russell Brand made this podcast. This was years ago, bear in mind, before the allegations came out. I don't support this man. I don't engage in any of his content anymore. But he made a point to me, not to me, but on this episode a few years ago that really stuck out to me and has stuck with me. Burn him though, low-key. But he said the reason that so many people struggle at the minute is because they have nothing to believe in. And I really do believe that, because my life got infinitely better the second I started believing in something greater than myself. And it also allowed me to stop being so fucking selfish. Like, I realised that I was a part of something so much bigger than myself that I couldn't conceive. And it's like, I think this is the main issue that I have with primarily men, because like men can never comprehend something that they can't physically see. Like, for some reason they don't have that ability. But to be able to I'm trying to think of a way to word this, to be able to comprehend something that you know is there, that you have no proof of, but you know is part of you and you are part of it, and it is this harmonious and sort of symbiotic relationship that connects you to every other thing on this earth. It's a feeling of community that I cannot explain to you unless you have experienced. I bear in mind, I was an atheist the whole of my life. I didn't believe in anything. So yeah, I am not the sort of person that would, come online and be like, go and read a Bible. Like, I did not believe in God. I did not believe in Satan. I did not believe in anything of the sort. I thought it was all ridiculous. Honestly, I would laugh at you. Like, I was one of those people that was like, ha, you think that's real? You're an idiot. Like, I genuinely believed people that believed in spirit were like lesser than individuals and dumb. And it's so funny to look back on now. And that's why when I meet people like that now, I think it's hilarious. Like, and I find it really funny that they get so irate about something that does not affect them at all. But for me, having this belief that I've been able to carry with me, that one, I'm going to be okay. That's like the main thing that it gives me, is that I'm going to be okay. Even if I die, I know I'm going to be okay. And two, that I am on this path. Like, I have a path and I have a direction, and it's like this thing of, once you know what to look for in synchronicities, they are everywhere, and like, following the signs that are laid out for you, you're never going to get lost. And it's such a nice feeling, and it's massively taken away that need for physical, third dimensional material success, because I think as long as I'm walking the path that I know that I'm meant to, and again, I can't explain it to you unless it's something you've experienced for yourself. I don't know how to explain it to you. There's no words to explain it. It's just a feeling. If you're spiritual or religious, you'll know what I'm on about. But yeah, it just takes away, and I think this is where that thing of like that lack of ambition comes in, because for me it's like, I know that for the rest of my life I'm walking the path that I'm meant to walk, and I know that sounds really like woo-woo and whatever, but like, I know that I'm set, like I'm okay. My life is written for me, like it's done. There's nothing I can do to change it. I can choose another path, but when I do that, nothing ever works out for me. I'm met with job losses. I'm met with financial hardship. I'm met with struggle. I'm met with indifference. I'm around people I don't like. I'm in situations I don't like. I'm, constantly struggling, constantly in fight or flight mode. Like, I'm constantly battling with myself and others. And I guess maybe because I've kind of like done the back and forth for it for a while, I can tell when I'm like, on the right track, and I can tell when I'm being pushed out of something. And it is that thing of redirection, taking a challenge as redirection instead of just moaning about it is one of the things that I'm so grateful that I've been able to develop, like, as a skill. And I think that's where that whole thing of like, it's like people being like, oh, you've got no drive and you've got no ambition. I have drive. I get things done. Like, I'm very, very proactive, and I'm a very type A person. But in terms of ambition, like, I'm leaving that up to fate. Like, I know that sounds a bit like, what do you mean? Like, you're leaving it up to fate. But I just know that everything will be fine. Like, I don't know. It's just this sense of it will be fine. And like, don't get me wrong, I get anxious sometimes. Like, I'm not typically someone that struggles too much with anxiety, but when I feel it, I get very anxious, and I was prone to panic attacks, like anxiety attacks, a lot when I was younger. I would say I veered more towards panic attacks than anxiety attacks, but I have had both. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, apart from times where I do struggle or times where I maybe do feel a little bit lost, it's so much easier for me to figure out my next steps now. And that doesn't come through lack of ambition. Well, I guess the main point is that the more connected to myself I feel, the less I feel I need to work really hard or prove myself to other people. You know, it's like, I saw this interview with, I think his name's Jordan from Rizzle Kicks, and he said the same thing, that the more spiritually inclined he's become, or the more he's connected with himself, he has less goals that revolve around materialism. And it is something that is like a widely discussed phenomenon in the spiritual community, is that, you know, it's like in Buddhism that enlightenment is detachment. It's not wanting, it's not needing, it's just being okay with where you are, always happy in who you are right now in this moment, and not saying, well, when I have this I'll be fine, or when I have this job I'll be fine, or when I have this partner I'll be fine, or, you know, it's like just getting to the place of complete acceptance with who you are. And don't get me wrong, I don't want you to listen to this and be like, oh my god, she's such a spiritual bypasser, because we go through hard times, and it is imperative that you grow from your hard times and you learn from them, and like, there will always be a lesson in your hard times. It'll either be a lesson or a redirection, one of the two, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you always have this belief, regardless of how hard I struggle and whatever I go through. Like, I've been going through a particularly rough period the last few weeks, just mentally, you know, grappling with a few different things, but I have never lost that faith. Never, not once, and I never will. And I hope that for those listening to this, you are able to reach a similar place. And I'm not saying that you need to be religious. It's different for everyone. You know, your religion might be a sport, for example. Like, you know, a lot of people use that as their mental outlet, or your religion might be learning a new language, or finding something that does not feed into your ego. You know, it's like, okay, I run because I want to be I want my cardiovascular fitness to improve, not because I want to look better than someone else. I'm learning a new language because I want to open up my travel opportunities, not because I want to flex on other people that don't know languages. Like, doing things for yourself that make your quality of life better. And for me, that is spirit, and that is running and whatever, you know, like, I have a few different things that I choose to do, but my brain is turning off. So I'm trying to like summarize this in a nice way, but I don't think it's going to work. But thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'll speak to you guys soon.